And here we are. Welcome back to the Redshirt Sophomore, where we never sit out. We your hosts, Andy and CD. What's going on, guys? What is going on today? We are talking about toughest schedules in 2024. Yeah, okay, sure. Practices have started. Spring practices have started. Just started. I think seven SEC teams, almost half the SEC teams have started spring practice. From what I know, it's never too early to talk about what we're going to talk about. We're going to get way ahead of ourselves. All right. Because obviously, spring transfer portal window hasn't opened yet. So we don't know exactly how all these teams, how all these rosters are going to shake out. But you still have a pretty good idea, at least for schedule dynamics, like how tough a schedule is going to be for 2024. So I picked some teams. CD picked some teams. This was CD's idea too. He's here with a wicked tan coming off spring break there. I mean, if you're watching on YouTube, it's an absolute treat. If you're over on Spotify, we love you too. We love you too. I mean, of course, if you're watching on YouTube, though, if you like the content, like the video. Okay. It's a simple rule we have here. Just wanted to get that out of the way. Make sure you consider subscribing as well. We're going to have some pretty cool stuff, hopefully, in the future if we can hit some subscriber milestones. And we can't wait to bring you guys that stuff as well. And if you guys are listening on Spotify, we love you too. Just give us a follow. Maybe a 5-star rating if you like the content as well. Uh, but yeah, if you're on YouTube and you like CD's 10, make sure you give this video a like. I mean, that's okay. He absolutely crisped up for y'all. It's crazy. So, CD, what's going on?
Nothing much. I appreciate that from you. Like you said, like and subscribe. Like you guys always do. We appreciate the support and all that stuff. But I'm excited to talk about this, right? We love looking forward to 2024. We're almost there. Spring practice is very fun. A lot of practice notes, a lot of recruiting buzz, all this good stuff going on. But we're gonna focus on the actual gridiron, what's gonna happen next fall. And yeah, what's crazy is we forget about, I guess we didn't forget about, we talk about all the time with conference realignment and like weird conference matchups that are like, oh, Arizona's playing Colorado or Arizona's playing or Utah is showing up on Colorado's schedule, like all this weird stuff, right? And Texas, by the way, Texas shows up on one, two, three, four of these schools, right? Four of the nine. You have the Oklahoma, who they always play, right? No surprise there. But you've got conference games against Florida and Kentucky, and then an out of conference against Michigan. I mean, awesome. What awesome time. Very exciting. Look forward to 2024. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to preview some of these teams, and they're going to have a tough fall. But you know what? Some of these win totals are pretty darn high for these teams. And so Vegas thinks are going to do pretty good, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we tried to diversify our portfolio a little bit, get some different conferences in here. If you guys have some ones that we missed, because I know there are going to be, there are actually a ton that we missed, or we didn't have time to talk about. If you guys want to hear us talk about those, make sure you guys let us know in the comment section. Are we missing your team? Is your team have a tough schedule? You know, like over there in the MAC, who do we miss in the MAC? You know, probably someone. The Mountain West over there adds two teams from
Yeah.
essentially Power Five. So some of those Mountain West schedules, not only do they have brutal out of conference schedules, those Mountain West teams a lot of times, they're adding Oregon State and Washington State to the mix. So some of those Mountain West teams are going to get their not their teeth kicked in, but man, they got some uphill climbing that they got to do. So, CD, you ready to get into it?
Let's do it.
Let's first talk about West Virginia and their schedule for the 2024 season. You know, I thought this was going to be a pretty tough schedule last year, but they managed. And Neil Brown gets a contract extension just a few weeks ago. How about that? Good for that guy. I thought they had a fantastic season. Fantastic season. I'm fully on the Garrett Green bandwagon. He's 201, 200 to 1 to win the Heisman. Did I sprinkle a little bit already here in March? Potentially. But this is a
Yep.
team that I really like, and they return a ton of production. CD pulled up SP Plus's, Chris Connolly's returning
Bill Connolly.
production. Bill Connolly, they're 24th in the country in returning production, returning 70% of their total production from their team. Most importantly, they're
89%
off.
offensively.
Most
Garrett
importantly, and
Green,
that was what they were
Jaheim White.
so. That's what they were so good at last year, man. Offensively, yeah, sure. Like, uh, they had a pretty decent pass defense. Now, I thought that some of that was because they didn't play some teams that can throw the ball at all. But I mean, rushing attack wise, they were top five rushing attack probably in the country, and they get Jaheim White back, and they get CJ. Oh, you're getting McDonald. No,
CJ Donaldson.
CJ Donaldson. Gosh, what a bozo. And then, their passing attack, in terms of like, they didn't throw the ball a ton because they didn't need to. But
Didn't
their
need to.
efficiency, I mean, yards per catch, eighth in the country, 14.7. Garrett Green slinging the ball. He also, I mean, that offensive line is great and they returned a ton of it. Only zero point 0.8 sacks allowed per game. That's top three in the country last year. I mean, this is a team that is very good. And we'll get into their previews, when they come into the summer, but their schedule for the Big 12. Of all the schedules they could have gotten, they kind of got a tough draw because they also play Penn State out of conference.
Yeah, if you ask me who I don't want to see in conference, right? It's Kansas, right? It's Iowa State at Oklahoma State. You'd never want to go there. You got Kansas State at Arizona, at Cincinnati, even at Texas Tech. UCF is not an easy cupcake. Baylor, we'll see what they do there with some Daquan Finn and company. But even on the out of conference, which reason why they got to pick from the Big 12, them in Colorado, was their out of conference schedule, right? Penn State is no slouch. We know they're probably going to be pretty big dogs in that game on the road in Happy Valley. And then I'm sorry, at home against Penn State, right? But then they got on the road against Pitt, right? A team that really, really underperformed a year ago, but is looking to bounce back, right? And so we'll see. Pat Narduzzi never has 2 bad years in a row, never has 1 bad year, right? And this is his first bad year at Pitt, and I don't, I don't, I don't expect them to continue that trend downward. I believe they're gonna bounce back, or at least be a lot more competitive in games than they were just a year ago. But yeah, West Virginia, this is not easy. They're over under win total 6.5, right? After winning what 7, 8 games a year ago, 8 games a year ago in the regular season, and now it's down to 6.5 because of that tough schedule, because of the realignment. Yes, you lose no Texas, no Oklahoma, but you bring in Arizona, right? You bring in UCF came in a year ago, but regardless, like the schedule got pretty tough for West Virginia.
Yeah, and I do want to highlight two of those teams when they're Oklahoma State and Iowa State. Oklahoma State returns almost their entire team. So does Iowa State,
Mm-hmm.
and got some slack for criticizing the way that Matt Campbell is building his program there. But you have to admit that this roster that he has for this upcoming year, Matt Campbell can do something with that, and I think Mike Gundy can do something as well over there at Northwest or Oklahoma State. Well, Iowa State is second in returning production. Oklahoma State is fourth in returning production. And then also like Arizona, I know they're going through a coaching change, but offensively they still got a lot of talent there. They still got a ton of talent there on the offensive side of the ball. So I would not blame you for dropping that game, especially on the road. Especially on the road. So this is a pretty tough schedule for West Virginia. Uh, Fortunately, they get a lot of these important games at home. But the flip side of that is like some of these games, like the more winnable games, right? Like the hey, you have to wins in order to hit your win total. Those are all on the road, it looks like, except Baylor, maybe. It's like you gotta beat Pitt, right? But that one's on the road in a huge rivalry game, by the way, which has been a great game the last couple of years. And Cincinnati, that one's like on the road. It would have been nice. Would have been nice to maybe have one of those games on the road or at home, and then Oklahoma State, of course, on the road is tough. But I I'm really confident in this team. I don't know that I'm going to be taking their over on their win total. I like West Virginia a lot in their roster. I mean, we've already said it multiple times. But yeah, it is something to point out. Now, unsure, and there's going to be these SEC folk, and believe me, I'm an SEC folk in the comments that are saying, "Oh, this is nothing compared to whatever, whomsoever's schedule in the SEC." But for the Big 12, like with this new Big 12 outlook, I'm saying like this is a tough schedule. This is a tough schedule for West Virginia. And the schedules are all relative too, by the way. So it's not like if Vanderbilt was to play this schedule, it'd be different than Alabama playing this schedule, right? Like we would not be if Virginia was playing a schedule like this, we'd be more inclined to talk about them than if Alabama was playing the schedule. Correct. So
Exactly.
the I, I'm all on the West Virginia bandwagon, but let's I'll be interested to see like some of these teams what I'm hearing out of spring camp, especially Baylor. Like, what is the outlook there? Like, are the beat writers feeling good about this team? Like, are the coaches feeling good at the media days? Like, what's with UCF? Can they keep continuing their rise in the Big 12 and Power Five play? And how's the locker room look in Arizona with the new coach? All these things are going to be moving, and it's impossible to tell exactly how these schedules are going to go. And I'm making over under win total pick right now, but definitely a schedule to monitor for sure.
Well, yeah, and you look. We talk about schedule dynamics of this schedule, right? You see the 2 bye weeks, which is not typical of a college football schedule, but because of the way the calendar falls, you have the one Saturday in August, right? August 31st, and you have 5 Saturdays in November, which gives you that second bye week, which you get. And for teams like West Virginia, that's very, very massive. And you'll see right later on this list as well how important these bye weeks are. They kind of come at good times for them. They have a tough schedule, after those first 4 weeks, you could be at 1-3, right? And worst case scenario, shit hits the fan for West Virginia, and you got to gear up and go play some really really tough, the meat and bones, the meat and potatoes of your conference schedule at Oklahoma State, Iowa State versus Kansas State, and at Arizona before you hit another bye week. Those bye weeks, yes, they're nice for you, but also, you know, sometimes it's nice to just recover from that stretch you're gonna have and be able to gear up for that November run that you do have. Cincinnati, Baylor, UCF at Texas Tech, games you think you might have good chances to win.
Absolutely, absolutely. Any other thoughts on West Virginia's schedule for 2024? If
No,
fans, if you're a West Virginia fan, please give us your thoughts in the comments. Like, how do you think this looks? Like, are you confident, Neil Brown? Did you like the extension? I did. Not gonna lie, I did. But any other thoughts, CD?
no, good. No, I love it.
Let's talk about Michigan's schedule. And this is a hot topic in the offseason. Like the schedule, like when you look up, if you go on Google, if you probably, I would imagine, look up toughest schedules in college football, someone's probably written an article about Michigan being in there. This is a brutal schedule. All right. You're out of conference, right? You play Fresno State at home. Sure, like your first 5 games you get at home, which is really nice. Okay. If you're looking on YouTube, you can see the graphic on the screen. If you're listening on Spotify, I encourage you to go to YouTube. It makes the viewing experience more enjoyable because we have these graphics up here. But Fresno State, you get at home. Luckily, Texas, you get at home, which is tough, right? I mean, I actually think Texas can win that ball game. Like I would, if
Texas
you
is
were to
gonna be
tell me,
favored in that game
if
for
you were
sure.
to put a gun to my head, I would pick Texas to win that game, even on the road. So, and then Arkansas State, who, I mean, that's a win for Michigan, but also that's not an easy team to play. Like they're kind of on the rise there in the Sun Belt. They got some good young talent in there, and Butch Jones may have just saved his job this last offseason. So
They
it's just,
return 82% of their offense. And yes, Michigan has a ton of talent returning up front, right? Even though they lose a ton of guys in the NFL draft, they're going to replenish there. But also, like, you're bringing a new scheme, right? With um Wes Mc or Frick, what's his name? Wink Martindale. Sorry, Wink
yes.
Martindale. And then you're also, yeah, you got to replace these guys, and they throw the ball all over. They return, like I said, 82%. That's good for eighth nationally. I'm not trying to convince you that Arkansas State's going to go in there and upset them, right, to bet that money line game. But I'm just saying, like, it's not going to be easy. And those things, you're going to play a lot of snaps in that football game, potentially defensively, and that's going to hurt you later on down the road when you're maybe getting to at week 6 at Washington, right?
Yeah. Also, too, like I hate this word and this concept because it's stupid, and I think it worsens the viewership experience for sports fans. But like because of the college football playoffs, like there might be potentially an extra game that you're playing in the season. Injuries are very important in load management. Like Wink Martindale does not know how to load manage. All right, he's going to come at you 100% of the time, full speed. Um, so like in those games, like Arkansas State, like where you're hoping you can get your starters off the field quickly, like it might not be as quick as you think, because Arkansas State might be a little bit frisky offensively. So yeah, so that's their out of conference. In conference, you get USC at home, who I think they should handle. Minnesota, they handled last year pretty well. Washington, you go on the road. Now Washington, this is a different Washington team than we saw last year. Nice, so which is crazy. We get a national championship rematch, week 6 of the season.
Two new
Pretty awesome.
coaches, brand new teams. Brand new conference for Washington. It doesn't even feel like it's a national championship rematch, right? That normally that's a gift, and that's a total like, holy cow! Everyone's focused on that game, circling on our calendar. And while yes, it's a big deal for both these programs in the Big Ten, but it doesn't feel like that same kind of vibes. But regardless, though, it's still going to be tough, I think, for Michigan to still go on the road after a tough 5 game stretch and play, in Seattle.
Yeah. Then you get a bye before you go into the rest of your Big Ten. Well, I guess you get 2 buys in the Big Ten schedule, which is I like the later buys. That I think dynamically works out for them pretty well. Illinois, I don't anticipate that being a problem, or Michigan State, but you play Oregon at home, and Oregon might be a ball club this year. It might be a ball club, so that's kind of that's a sneaky game, not a sneaky game. Sorry, that is a prime time gigantic game that if they want to go to the college football playoffs, if you can win that game, that helps your resume big time. Then you get
Oh,
Indiana a bye, and then the biggest look ahead spot of all time, playing against Northwestern, at home. I mean, any game before the Ohio State game, right? It's going to be dangerous. Like last year was Maryland, and Maryland kind of took Michigan down to the wire. if people forget, Michigan was the best team in the country, but it is a gigantic look ahead spot. That is a schedule dynamic that you got to think about. So
2 years
big,
ago,
big,
wasn't it? Was it? It was Illinois, right?
yeah.
Illinois,
2 years ago, two
why?
years ago was Illinois. So that is something that you have to consider. So yeah, the big games to circle here, right? It's Texas, it's Washington, it's Oregon, it's Ohio State. But just those four alone make this an incredibly difficult schedule for any team in the country. Um, let alone a team that is going to be losing like 18 players to the NFL.
Yeah, and I'm not telling you to go and bet this right now, but I'm telling you that the over under right now, the consensus over under on Michigan is 9.5. Right, that means Vegas is telling you that if you want their over, they're gonna have to go and win. They're gonna have to go 2-2 or 3-2 in those games against Texas, USC, Washington, Oregon, Ohio State. Like, yes, a lot of those games are at home, but still, man, that's a lot to ask for almost a brand new team, a brand new coaching staff. Just heard Mike Hart's not returning as running back coach. That's a big time loss for Michigan, who has to replace Blake Corum. Yes, Donovan Edwards is very good. I get that. Regardless, though, still a loss overall for your coaching staff. That's a lot, man. That's a lot. In the new Big 12, I'm sorry, the new Big 10, with the traveling, your West Coast trip is Washington. Yes, you get a bye after that, which is nice. Obviously helps. Doesn't make that game much easier though in week 6. And then Michigan State, new coaching staff. They're going to be looking to get better and revenge on Michigan for the embarrassment they've had the past couple of years on them. You mentioned Northwestern trap game at Illinois. You remember what Illinois did them a couple of years ago, right? And obviously, much different football
Different,
team.
different team. Yeah, but
Yeah,
I see your point there. I see your point. I mean, the one that I want to look at too, like I could rattle off, the metrics of this Michigan national championship team, and you're like, wow, what a good program, good football team. They're 128th in returning production. 128, according to Bill Connolly, it's returning production metrics. Fortunately for them, Washington on this schedule, is 130th. So you have some teams on the schedule that also kind of fit that bill. But we already talked about Northwestern, dude. Northwestern, a team that overperformed last year, is sixth in returning production. Now they don't get the legend Ben Bryant at quarterback back, but I mean, it feels like it might not matter who's playing quarterback there. It was just a well-coached football team last year, and they found ways to win ball games. So
Mhm.
honestly, I'd say that it's kind of fortunate that they get that game at home, you know. But you never know. Like if there's some bad weather over there, I mean, in the big house, like it could get kind of smelly over there. It could get kind of smelly. I mean, Northwestern even took Iowa. Like they took Iowa. They made a mess in that game. Uh, uh, I guess I don't think they didn't make Ohio State look bad last year. Right? It was 2 years ago that they made Ohio State look bad, or was it this year?
Yeah.
No, it was this
It's
year.
I I think it was 2 years ago because the whole big deal was like
Oh,
it was
CJ Stroud.
CJ
Yeah, yeah.
Stroud.
It was
Yeah.
like in the snow and like, um, I remember that. I remember that.
Yeah.
So I guess
Right.
a year off, but definitely. Let's see, 2022. I'm trying to find 2022 score. I don't remember that score. Anyways, I'm sure people in the comments can let us know what's going on there. But yeah, Michigan fans, let us know like what do you think about the schedule? Obviously it's brutal, right? But like, what is your confidence level going into this? Like 1 to 5, like 5 meaning like undefeated. Here we go, and 1 meaning like, man, we could lose 4 or 5 games on this schedule, right?
Let
So
me
I
let me ask you this here. Yes, so Vegas puts their over under win total at 9.5, like I said. So that means they're gonna have to go at least 1-2 against Texas, Oregon, and Ohio State. Right now, are they favored in any of those games? Even Texas and Oregon at home? Do you think they're favored?
I don't think they're favored against Texas or Oregon, actually. Yeah, I don't think they're favored against either of them.
And not
Is that
Ohio
crazy?
State
And not
at
Ohio,
Ohio
definitely
State.
not Ohio State on
So
the road.
that's the thing here.
That's
Is like Vegas is
wild.
telling you they're gonna have to win one of those games and upset someone, which I get that happens all the time, right? But that means they're gonna have to upset those teams, at least one of those teams, and run the rest of their schedule perfectly after losing all that talent and the coaching staff. I'm just saying, like dynamically, right? Yes, last year's Michigan team probably runs through the schedule pretty handily. Texas and Oregon probably pretty tough, and
I
along
mean,
with Ohio
not
State.
there's 2 college football playoff teams on the schedule, and Ohio State. I mean that like last year, if this last year Michigan team was to play this schedule last year, it would be a gauntlet. You
Yeah.
know, like you
So
have 4 college football playoff contenders on this schedule, and then just in the mix too, it would be a Caleb Williams game, just like I don't know, casually week 4. That you got to figure out how to figure that how to stop him. But we're talking about 2024, and it's still going to be a brutal schedule, I think.
yeah.
Let's talk about Florida. This one, I think is unanimously. I've never in my time watching college football, which is probably more limited than some of our viewers in the comments. This is the toughest schedule that I've ever seen on paper. On paper. Can you think of another one that you've ever seen? I mean, if you're watching on YouTube, you can look at the graph and you can see the schedule, right? I mean, if you're listening on Spotify, I can roll it off for you. Their out of conference includes Miami, Florida State, and UCF already. Miami, they'll be a top 25 power rated team. Florida State will be a top 25 power rated team. And UCF is on the rise, man. They're on the rise. They're a good football club right there. They're a good football program. And they've been recruiting well. Gus Malzahn is just a tough guy to scheme around, dude. Like you can always drop one to Gus Malzahn, right? And then to boot in conference, ready for this stretch right here. After your week 9 bye, right? And that's your last bye of the season. You play Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, Florida State. Ole Miss will be top 10 team preseason. LSU probably won't be top 10, but they'll be a good football team, rated wise. I'm not sure how improved their defense will be, but they'll be a good football team. Texas, and that game's on the road. And then Florida State, and that game's on the road. That's in Tallahassee. And Georgia, of course, greatest or largest outdoor cocktail party. That'll be in Jacksonville. Just brutal, And to boot, you got to play Texas A&M. Your other conference games are at Tennessee. You got to play Texas A&M, who it could be a good football team this year. We'll see how Mike Elko does in his first year, but it'll certainly be a talented team, and you got to play them early, right? That's a team that you don't want to play early, because that defensive line could potentially rough you up. You want to you want to try to avoid injuries early in the season. And then Kentucky, of course, we haven't beaten like the last 3 years. I mean, I, this is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. Now you get a bye right before that last stretch.
You better
But
use
still,
it. You better
you
use it.
better use it, man. You better use it. So we'll see if Graham Mertz dies. That'll be something to monitor. Like, can he survive this? And then imagine this, okay? DJ Lagway is special, man. He is a special football player, and I think that he will be really, really successful in college football in his future. But could you imagine if Graham Mertz gets hurt and you throw a true freshman into the fire against the schedule? Especially because the schedule is tougher down the stretch, right? So Graham Mertz goes down, he gets hurt, and down the stretch, you're asking DJ Lagway to I mean, it'll be a good test for him for sure. But you brought up this point earlier, like off air. Like, what does Billy Napier have to do to not get fired?
To me, if he goes 6-6 with this schedule, that man needs an extension. That man
Yes,
needs an
yes,
extension. That
yes.
would
With the
be
way that he's recruiting,
unbelievable. That to me, you're going to be favored in maybe 4 games. I don't know if you're going to be favored against Kentucky. Don't know how they're going to be this year yet, right? And you still have to go. One of those games is at Mississippi State, right? And one of them is Gus Malzahn. Okay, so that means you have to make up 2 wins against Miami and Cam Ward, Texas A&M and the new looked Mike Elko team, at Tennessee, Georgia neutral site, at Texas, LSU at home, Ole Miss at home, at Florida State. You can't tell me you get to that bye week. Yes, you get to the bye week. Finally, you made it there. You're probably 3-4, right? 4-3, best case scenario. And then you have to win 2 more games against Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss. I don't see it happening. I really don't. And I'm not going to bet it this early. Nobody knows what's going to happen with injuries. I'm not going to take an under this early. I don't think yet, but
no, you
five
can't
and a
take
half.
over unders this early. You could take Heisman futures though.
Yeah, sure. But
Shout out Garrett Green.
shout out Garrett Crane. And I actually do like what Florida's doing. I think they're improving. I think their coaching staff got better. I can't tell you poor Billy Napier, right? Like he probably what is he gonna do? 7-5 would be a miracle. That means you beat everybody that you're supposed that means you upset 3-4 teams maybe. And that is just incredible. And for Florida, right? Yeah, I can't. I just look at their administration. I can see Billy Napier just being so frustrated in a proven year. They circle this year, 2024. We get our guys in. We change the coaching staff. Blah, blah, blah. We get the administration running, all in line, all this good stuff. He works so hard. to get it running. And he looks at the schedule, is like, holy shit. My administration a couple years ago scheduled Miami and UCF and Florida State out of conference, not knowing that Texas was going to join their schedule, not knowing the divisions were going to shake up. So they were going to add Kentucky and Tennessee as their crossover games. I mean, it's brutal. The only team that you're missing is Bama, and this is Bama's down year, right? And this is the year you want to play Bama. So I mean, our Gator fans, right? Let us know in the comments. First of all, subscribe and like. We're not done talking about you guys this offseason, but let us know like what saves Billy Napier's job. What's 6-6? To me, 6-6. If I was a booster, if I was the administrator, and I see 6-6, I see incredible progress being had. I see competition. I see winning close games, upsetting teams you're not supposed to. But I don't know if that cuts it at Florida, and it shouldn't. It shouldn't, right? It shouldn't.
Yeah,
But
I don't
this
think it
schedule
cuts
is
it for
different.
fans. Like I would imagine the fans in the comment section would say 6-6 is not acceptable. And you know, if you're a Florida fan, that team is talented. Like as a Florida fan, it's not crazy to expect your team to win 7 games. Like for me, as an outsider perspective, I would say that is a major success, just given the schedule. And then that's something to build on too. Like, it, I mean, yeah. So
Mm.
this is great. Florida is 32nd in the country in returning production. I think offensively, they're going to have a pretty solid team. Now they don't have Travis Etienne, and they don't have
Ricky
Ricky
Pearsall.
Pearsall, who's very good, but Eugene Wilson is a stud. I think that offensive line will be fine as far as I know. Someone please correct me if I'm wrong, and there should be panic mode on that. But I don't know, man. I don't know. It's very easy to get caught up in what Florida did last year too, to like because it's like relative. Like schedules are all relative based on like how good a team actually is. So it's very easy to look at Florida last year and say like, okay, by God, this is an absolute gauntlet schedule. Like, say you get like a 25% increase on like the talent on the team and the production on the field, like you could still only win 5 games. Even if you play more like significantly better than you did last year, you could still only win 5 or 6 games because of how brutal the schedule is. Games you got to win: Samford, Mississippi State, UCF. I mean, those 3 games you have to win. You have to win
I throw Kentucky,
at home, yeah.
one of Kentucky or Tennessee, right?
Or else
And then
I would say Kentucky or LSU.
okay, and then one of Texas A&M and Miami, right? That puts you at 5 right now, and then you can steal one from somebody. That's your that's 6 wins for you. And
I actually think Florida can beat Florida State. I think they actually will. Is that a hot take?
on the road though, no, not at all. And but by the way, like that's week 14 Florida State, who didn't have to go through this schedule and is I'd
That's
probably pretty
true.
healthy and pretty deep, low key because they're deeper now than they have been, even though not top end talent. But I feel pretty good about Florida State to get to this game healthy and ready to go. DJU 14 weeks in the system. Regardless, yes, they can for sure beat Florida State, but again, you're gonna have to steal some games that you're not going to be favored in, and unfortunately, that's the sad reality of Florida football right now. And it's not even their fault. Like they're getting better. Like they're probably going to be a top 20 power rated football team, which I know isn't, Urban Meyer standards, but it's also pretty damn good compared to what they have been. And, you get this stuck with the schedule and it sucks.
Next thing we want to talk about Colorado. I brought this team up when CD and I were bringing up teams that we wanted to talk about. Last year, we talked about like the reason that their schedule was going to be tough, was because they're out of conference. And it actually, during the season, we kind of learned that the out of conference might not have been as tough as we originally thought it was going to be. And it turns out their conference schedule was actually really tough because the Pac-12 was a pretty good conference last year relative to what it had been. This year, I think it's the same as it was last year. I think this conference schedule is brutal. I mean, like in terms of like the conference schedule, this conference schedule versus West Virginia's conference schedule, I think this one's worse. I think this one's worse because you also draw Utah. I get Utah at home, but you also draw Utah, and they're probably the favorite to win the Big 12 next year. Not saying that they will, but that's just what odds makers have them at. That's what they're power rated as of this moment on March 11th when we're recording this. And then you're out of conference. You play Nebraska again at Nebraska. Second year with Matt Rule. I would imagine that team's a lot better. You're gonna have Dylan Raiola potentially playing quarterback there, so hopefully you get some upgraded quarterback play. Colorado State is going to continue to get better. I, you heard me right. They're going to continue to get better. Colorado State is going to get better. And you play Colorado State at Colorado State. We remember that game from last year. That was an awesome game. And then you also play one of the best um, FCS programs, in North Dakota State. So it's you're out of conference. You're playing three teams that like you could lose to. You don't like to see a Power Five team lose to an FCS team, but like North Dakota State's one of those teams like where it's like not that it's an exception, but it's you could see it happening maybe, you know. Now I do expect Colorado to maybe be better than they were last year. I think Deion's done a pretty decent job building this roster. We were not going to talk about their recruiting class for this video, but yeah, their Big 12 schedule, what's tough about it, Kansas State at Arizona, Texas Tech, Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma State. Right. I mean that's pretty brutal. West Virginia, the only difference in West Virginia's schedule and Colorado's schedule is that they don't have to play Iowa State, but you substitute Utah in there for Iowa State.
Yeah.
It's basically like their schedules are nearly identical. Actually, their conference schedules are nearly identical, except for that. That's pretty wild. I don't know how that happened, but
Yeah.
yeah. So it actually, on paper, I guess it's tougher, even though I think Iowa State could be an absolute unit of a team. But um, yeah, this is a tough schedule for Colorado. I'm not going to talk about how many wins that this potentially could mean for them, but I mean, what are your thoughts? I know I brought this up, but what are your thoughts on Colorado's schedule for 2024?
Yeah. I don't I don't think any game here is an auto lock where I'm going to bet my savings that they can win. Yes, they should beat North Dakota State. Like you mentioned, no, it's a damn good North Dakota State. Now it's not, 2020 North Dakota State, not 2019 North Dakota State, right? Where they were just dominating everybody in the FCS because you've got some better teams up, the Jackrabbits, South Dakota State, and all that good stuff. And their coaches over at USC now. But still, I that's not someone to be messed with, right? Especially with how volatile they kind of play, right? With their play style. If you get after the quarterback, you're gonna be able to have a chance to win that football game at Nebraska, like you mentioned. Better year two with Matt Rule in Lincoln. That's not gonna be easy to play in. And then at Colorado State, that game was brutal last year, and that was very very tough. And obviously, even Baylor. I mean, yes, they're not as good as they have been, right? Back 2021 season, all that, but who knows what Daquan Finn can do there? Who knows if Dave Aranda can turn it around and then maybe his last stand there as Baylor coach, right? But best case scenario, you're 4-0, right? Maybe 3-1. Then you still have to go on a really, really tough schedule. And like you mentioned, at UCF is not easy. Kansas State's going to be damn good. They'll be dogs in that game at Arizona. Arizona brings a ton back. And obviously looking to make a run with Brent Brennan in year one. Cincinnati, even, who knows? They're getting better with Scott Satterfield. Brendan Sorsby comes in. Yeah, I don't know. To me, I love that you brought this team up because they bring back a lot. They're bringing in a lot transfer wise, trying to shore up that O line and the D line and all that good stuff. And obviously Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn and Marion Miller, all those guys give you chances to win football games. But it's also like to go a full 14-week. Yes, you get two buys, which helps Colorado more than other teams, I think, because their depth maybe isn't what it is, and you're also relying on maybe a couple players more than other teams are. But also to go in the meat and potatoes of a schedule is not easy. We saw that last year with the Pac-12. Yes, the Pac-12 was very good. You'd have to play Oregon. You had to play Utah and USC, UCLA at UCLA. Oregon State was very good, at Washington State and Cam Ward. Obviously, the Big 12 is pretty tough in its own right, but not the same high-level caliber teams that you played a year ago. Still, though, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy at all. Yeah, I love that you brought them up. The over win total is 5.5. Right, it's about one or two wins more than it was just a year ago. And yeah, 6 wins is going to be pretty damn tough to be at for Deion and this crew here. I think they can do it absolutely, but you're also going to have to beat some teams you shouldn't beat. And to me, that's
Yes.
never an easy ask to hit an over when you have to upset some teams and beat everybody you're supposed to. And for a team with the volatility that Colorado brings you, right, that's never an easy and comfortable thing to do.
Yes, I agree. And okay, looking at the games, what are the games that they need to win to hit their win total, right? That you have to beat Cincinnati, you have to beat Colorado State, you have to beat North Dakota State, right? And then
Baylor. You probably have to beat Baylor.
and then you probably have to beat Baylor at home. Okay, so that's four. So then you got to find two more wins on this schedule. And maybe they can, but it's tough because the Nebraska game's on the road. which like of the games that you would think like they have the best chance of winning, they're all on the road, right? Like of the remaining ones, right? UCF is on the road, Nebraska is on the road, Arizona is on the road, Texas Tech is on the road, like brutal, man, absolutely brutal. So I did want to include them on this list. They're not the only team in the Big 12 with along with West Virginia that has a schedule relative to the other schedules in the Big 12. They're not the only one with it. They're not the only two with tough schedules, right? They're not the only two with tough schedules, but um, definitely wanted to bring them up here because I mean we talked about it last year. It was a tough schedule last year, and I thought they overperformed. I you know like they should have beaten Stanford, which is ridiculous. That Stanford under 2.5 didn't cash because of freaking Colorado blowing a 30-point lead at half. Unbelievable there, but yeah, I mean
Yeah,
Colorado won some ball games, so.
they played some teams close down the stretch. They were getting better. They were still bought in, still working hard. But also, here's this. Let me approach this for you, right? Let's say you're Fox or ESPN, whoever has the rights to the Big 12 in that week 7. Let's say Colorado somehow goes 5-0, right? They beat Nebraska on the road, right? They beat UCF on the road, right? They beat the other teams. And Kansas State's also undefeated. They got to beat Arizona. They got to beat Oklahoma State and some other teams to get to there. But they come off by week 6 to week 7. That matchup, two undefeated Big 12 teams. Are you kidding me? Both probably in the top 15. That is going to be a dream for the pack for the Big 12 for sure, and also ESPN or whoever's hosting that, because game day will be there. Dion will be going nuts. The ratings will be crazy. But yeah, Colorado, yeah, that'd be awesome. Obviously for a lot of fans and obviously college football in general. But again, they're on the schedule for a reason. It's not Florida's tough, but it's also Big 12 tough, and it's Colorado tough. Like this is not an easy schedule for them to have a 5.5 win total and to hope to make a jump year 2 with Dion and to take advantage of a generational quarterback like Shador Sanders.
Let's talk about Oklahoma. All right. This is like absolute gauntlet schedule. Now, the out of conference, to a lot of you doesn't look very gauntlet-y, right? You got Maine is their uh, FCS team that they've scheduled on there, but uh, or Division Two, I don't know, Division Three,
I
Division
think they're FCS.
FCS. Okay. Either way, doesn't matter. Temple, Temple's terrible, right? Win that ball game. Houston and Tulane. Um, aren't the toughest out of conference schedules, especially like for the caliber of team that Oklahoma is. But those are two Power Five teams. I mean, Tulane isn't Power Five, right? But they could play at that level, right? John Summerall's got those boys humming over there. I know you really like their transfer portal class. We both love John Summerall as a coach. Okay, it's the SEC schedule that's really brutal for Oklahoma, right? You kind of you get through all your home games, or 4 of your home games in the first 4 weeks. Then you go, so you play Tennessee in your last home game, week 4, Auburn, week 5 at Auburn, and you are just about as high on Auburn as anyone. I'm very high on Auburn too. That's a good ball club. That's scary. And when your first road game is going to Jordan Hare, that's that could be very much trouble. Do you agree?
Yeah, Auburn is not a team to trifle with on the road. And also, who knows what they're going to look like? They're going to look completely different than I think a year ago offensively, right? Obviously, Cam Coleman comes in. This isn't an Auburn video, but regardless, though, you're going to have a lot of changes there. Hopefully, year 2 under Hugh Freeze. And welcome to the SEC, right? You got to go play Tennessee, who's damn good, Nico, right? And then also at Auburn, and that's never easy. And then you get a bye, which is awesome. You got to make your way to that bye. The over win total is 7.5, so you're looking at trying to find 8 wins, hitting that over, right? Vegas says you're going to be right around there, 7, 8 wins. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, and also like Houston, like you mentioned, not yes, they should be favored, they should win, but still, it's still, the wear and tear is going to get to you. Now, that's my fear with this Oklahoma team. I do think they're deeper. I think Brent Venables did a good job of building this team from the inside out and making sure they can withstand the conference schedule, the tough conference schedule that the SEC brings you. But at the easy, it's easier said than done, right? And you're not going to see it until you're not going to believe it until you actually see it for Oklahoma.
Absolutely. And then also, I mean, Texas neutral side, Missouri on the road, Ole Miss on the road, Bama at home, at LSU. Welcome to the SEC, brother. I mean, this is a tough schedule, dude. This is a tough, tough, tough schedule. And you know what? I actually do have a lot of faith in this Oklahoma team. The issue though is, you're playing Auburn when they're on the rise. You're playing Texas when they're on the rise. You're playing Ole Miss when they're definitely on the rise. You're playing Missouri when they're on the rise. I mean, like a lot of these teams like are risers. So you're getting a lot of these risers. Now you don't have to play Georgia, okay, which is fine. All right. It could still be a tough schedule in the SEC, and you're not playing Georgia, right? As we know. But you don't get Vanderbilt, right? You don't get Arkansas. You do get
Mississippi
South
State.
Carolina at home, and you're hoping that they can win that football game. But yeah, the three that you kind of would want to see is Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, and Arkansas. And none of those three are on their schedule. So they're basically getting all upper echelon top half SEC teams for the most part. So yeah, this is a brutal schedule. I'm excited though. I'm very, very, very excited to watch Oklahoma play in the SEC. I think they deserve the opportunity to compete at the highest level against a team like Alabama every year, against teams like Texas every year, which they already did, of course, but against the Georgias, I think they deserve an opportunity given the history of their program. We'll see what Jackson Arnold can do, man. We'll see what he can do. I personally am very high on him. We've already talked about him in our Rising Stars episode. If you guys viewers haven't checked that out, you definitely, definitely should, especially if you're an Oklahoma fan. Specifically, we talked about Jackson Arnold. Yeah, if you're an Oklahoma fan, like, are you guys
David
excited for the
Stone.
schedule? Like, what?
We talked about David Stone too.
We talked about David Stone as well. Did talk about David Stone. So if you're an Oklahoma fan, like, let us know in the comments. Like, are you excited about the schedule? Like, what are your fears? Like, do you, how many wins do you see this? Do you have their over under win total on you right now?
Yeah, like 7.5 is that win total. And to be honest, like that's
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 low. It feels
lower than it was
low.
last year. Last year was 9.5, or it was 8.5 last year, I believe, and or nine, whatever it was, right around that area. And you just had an easy schedule, Big 12, and you had a lot of seniors up front offensively, and you had a veteran quarterback, and you had a pretty deep or pretty senior ridden defense as well. And a lot of those guys defensively come back, but your O line, you lose a ton of guys. A lot has been made of your O line, the exits, the transfers to the draft, and all that good stuff. And yeah, it's tough. It's tough sledding year one. And I think that front five is good enough to hold up. I'm talking about the starting O line is good enough to hold up for the first couple weeks, but it's also like injuries happen, shit hits the fan. You gotta adjust, and Jackson Arnold's gonna be running for his life, come week 9 against Ole Miss or week 11 against Missouri, and then obviously you get that bye week there. But yeah, it's tough. Welcome to the SEC. And now Oklahoma, by the way, it's not like they're not a poverty program at all. They're one of the best programs in college football. They have a pretty damn good head coach, and they're obviously building to become an elite player in the SEC. But it's also like still hard. Like this schedule is still brutal for anybody to play, and Oklahoma just happens to be playing it.
Absolutely. Let's talk about UCLA. Bet you didn't think we were going to talk about UCLA today. Here it is. Here's also, I get the buys come at a convenient time in terms of travel schedule. So this is like where the regionality of certain conferences comes into play. Now, I know Hawaii is not a conference team, but you have to fly to Hawaii and then you have to fly to New Jersey to play Rutgers in the same season. I get it, it's like 7 weeks apart, but in the same season, you are flying to Hawaii and you are flying to Rutgers. That is crazy. That is crazy, man. And you got to go fly to LSU, right? Because that's not neutral site, right? That's at LSU, I believe.
It's in Baton Rouge. Yep.
So that, and you have to fly to Penn State. Uh, this is wild. The travel dynamics of UCLA, this schedule is absolutely nutty, right? Let alone they play some really talented teams out of conference. They play LSU and they play Fresno State. Fresno State's it's a home game. A G5 team. Uh, I don't know the status of Jeff Tedford. I hope he's doing all right. I don't know if he'll be coaching there next year. Uh, Maybe someone knows more than I do, or have been checking headlines, or I don't know. But LSU, Fresno State out of conference, it's kind of tough. Other than that, in conference, Washington, it's pretty tough. Penn State, of course, we already talked about them having to go to Penn State, to Nebraska, like Oregon. Obviously, I haven't even brought up yet. So I'd say the headliners on this schedule are LSU, Oregon, Penn State, Washington. right? Which is a pretty similar schedule to kind of like what Ohio State is doing, but instead of Ohio State's playing, or sorry, Michigan's playing Ohio State instead of Penn State, basically. And then I guess flip Texas for LSU in their schedule. So pretty comparable schedules, if you ask me. It just is a more brutal travel schedule for UCLA. That's the reason why I think that this UCLA schedule is very brutal. Like that'd be my top reason. What about you?
Yeah, the dynamics of weeks 4 through 8, and with all due respect to Indiana, right? But 4 through 8 is brutal,
Yeah.
right? You go at LSU, like you mentioned, and then you come home for Oregon. Great. You're probably going 0-2 in those games, and you're probably at least you're probably over 2 touchdown dogs in both those games. Then you pick up on the road at what might be a Happy Valley whiteout against Penn State. You never know. Regardless, though, that's a gauntlet. You come home. Oh, you welcome Minnesota. Nope. That's the PJ Fleck revenge game. Obviously, Minnesota's going to be jacked up for that. UCLA almost stole their head coach. And for Deshaun Foster, who got the job, right? There's a brutal, and then you got to pick up your stuff and travel across the country to Rutgers. I mean, it does not get easy for UCLA, who's breaking a new head coach, who's losing some guys to the draft, who's losing the guys to transfer portal, and like to break in a lot of these new faces, and you lose Dante Moore and all this good stuff. Like it is not easy. And then you turn around and you got to play some physical football teams at Nebraska, right? In October. You got Iowa, and then you got at Washington, who's obviously no slouch, new team, good coach though. And obviously you finish off with USC and Fresno State in the state of California. But still though, their overall total is 5.5. 5.5 for UCLA. That means Vegas thinks they're not going to make a bowl game, and I'm right there with them. I mean, I know it's early and that stuff. I'm not going to bet it yet, but I'm telling you, I'm looking at this right now, and like looking up 5 wins means you have to string together a lot of wins that, yes, on the surface it looks easy and like, oh, okay, you can probably beat Minnesota, you can probably beat Rutgers, you can probably beat Iowa or Nebraska, and maybe even USC. But it's just the accumulation and the dynamics of the schedule is what makes it so tough. And you also think about breaking in new stuff and the conference. It is a gauntlet for USC. I mean, to me, this
UCLA.
is one of the I'm sorry, UCLA. This is one of the tougher schedules in college football, even within this list. To me, they're them
Dynamic wise.
dynamic wise. Yes, yes.
I mean, it's still a tough schedule. Like you're playing good teams, right? It's a Big Ten schedule, right? It's going to be brutal. So some of these games are going to be cold. Traveling. Actually,
No,
I
they,
guess
they got lucky there
Nebraska. They
in
got lucky
November.
there.
That
Yeah,
they're
'cause-
not, Nebraska's is November like 1st or whatever it is, November 3rd.
so that
It's
could be
early
cold.
November, but
But
it's
like,
not late November going to Minnesota or Iowa or even Rutgers or
or
Penn State
Wisconsin.
or even Washington, right? But you stay in California for those last 2 weekends of
Yeah,
November.
yeah. Still brutal schedule. UCLA fans, let us know how you feel about this. Is anyone going to be traveling to any of these road games? UCLA fans. I know it's somewhat of a national brand there, but are you traveling from California to any of these games? I would love to know. I'd be
I mean,
fascinated.
Baton Rouge would be a fun place to go. I think Rutgers would be
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah. If you're from the
Nebraska,
West,
Lincoln, it's tough to get to that place, but it's also would be fun as well. Let me ask you this, Matthew. Like, how many of these games are they favored in? Right? Like they gotta get to 5.5 wins. LSU, Oregon, Penn State. I don't think they're favored against Rutgers, by the way, on the road Rutgers.
I don't think
Rutgers
they're
is
favored against
8.
Nebraska either.
No. And at
I think they could
Washington,
be. I think they'll be favored against Rutgers. Maybe. I haven't looked at
Rutgers
Rutgers.
is eighth returning production. Eighth returning production. We love
Yeah,
that.
but
And they get
I mean
Ethan
they're
Manis.
yeah, that is some production that they're returning there. But I don't know, man. I guess you're right. I guess I could see them being favored in three of these games for
Or at
sure.
least within a field goal. And that's the thing is you're gonna have all these toss-up games. Minnesota, Rutgers. I throw Iowa at home in there, even Nebraska or at Washington, USC. Like those are gonna be toss-up games where you're gonna have to win those football games in close games. And Deshaun Foster is gonna have to learn how to win close football games right away. And listen, it's tough. It is. It's going to be tough sledding there for you. And you're 95th in returning production from a year ago. A team that was supposed to be one of your best teams in a long time, right? Building up to that with Chip Kelly, kind of underperformed, and then you lose a lot of those guys anyways. So it doesn't get easy.
Yeah, I mean, I yeah. Enough said. Let's talk about Kentucky. This 2024 schedule. At first glance, you're like, meh, but let's talk about it. Right, let's talk about it. This is a tough schedule, man. This is a tough schedule. Here's the SEC teams that you play: Georgia, Ole Miss. You play Vanderbilt, which is nice. At Florida, Auburn, who we've talked about being very, very good. At Tennessee and at Texas
And South Carolina. Shout out South
and
Carolina.
South Carolina. Shout out to South Carolina. But what's interesting about the schedule is that you get the SEC games. You get two of them in the first 3 weeks of the season. You kind of like wish you load manage those, but that's just what it is when you play Louisville week 14. Okay,
Hmm.
you get those conference games earlier in the season, and when you play
Murray
in the
State week
SEC, you
12.
play a lot of these SEC schools have that out of conference game week 12, week 13. Um, so their out of conference is not tough, right? I mean, Murray State, Southern Miss. I would argue that Ohio is going to have a huge drop off next year. No Kershwart, no Saya Bangura, no Sam Wiglas. Um, they lost another receiver as well. So the offensive production there certainly would drop. It'll still be a good defensive ball club, but uh, Louisville obviously is a tough game, but they get it at home, which is nice. I would anticipate. I don't know. I really don't know what to think of Louisville's team going in next year. A lot of transfer portal stuff, but it's a tough schedule, and it's headlined by Georgia, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Texas, and those are all preseason top 15 teams, if you ask me. Top 20. I don't know. Tennessee might be top 20.
It's brutal. I mean, after that Vanderbilt game, you're looking at one, two, three. You're looking at six games, and five of them you might be underdogs in. Louisville might be a pick 'em. Auburn at home might be, a pick 'em, or probably Auburn's favored a little bit. But like at Florida, right? And we know how tough Florida's schedule is. We already talked about it. And they might be battling their own demons in their own right, too. It's still not gonna be easy going there on the swamp. They circle you guys in Kentucky like this is our winnable game. This is a game we have to have this year. And to make it a bowl game, obviously. Tennessee, never easy to play. And then at Texas. I mean, you welcome in Texas to the conference, and Texas is damn good. Obviously, I like what Kentucky did in the portal. You bring in some cool guys. You bring in Macklin. You bring in Vandegrift, some guys in the portal. You bring in Ohio State's backup running back a year ago, and so we'll see how it goes offensively for them. But I don't know. Is their O line getting better? I don't think so. I really don't. I'll believe when I see it. Right. We'll hear what spring practice reports say. But still, yeah. To me, this is a recipe for disaster. What makes the schedule tough is you play the tough teams in the conference. Right. Georgia. Right. Texas. At Tennessee. At Ole Miss. At Florida. Auburn. Those are all very, very tough games. And then you're out of conference. It's not easy. Louisville, right? And to me, that's exactly why I wanted them on this list, because it's just tough. And for a team like Kentucky, and yes, I love Mark Stoops. Yes, I love what he's done with the program. They're getting better, blah blah, all that good stuff. But still, it's not easy. It is not easy for them to win, and to win in a very, very tough schedule where you have to get up every week and play your best. And you might slip up against Florida. You might slip up against, Louisville or Auburn or Vanderbilt, or teams that you want, and circle the teams you got to beat to make your over on a win total, right? They're sitting at 6.5 over on total. That means Vegas thinks you're going to make 6, 7 wins right there, just barely make a bowl game. And 7 wins is hard to find on this schedule. Hard to find.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what are the games that they got to win, right? To reach their win total. It's Vanderbilt, it's Murray State, it's Southern Miss, it's Ohio. So what is that? That's four?
Pro- Probably South Carolina 5, and then you got to win 2 games, some kind of combination of Louisville, Auburn, and Florida. And because I don't see you beating Ole Miss at Ole Miss. I don't see you beating at Tennessee. I don't see you competing with Texas and Georgia. No, not yet. We'll see. Who knows? Who knows? But I'm just saying, you're gonna have to win 2 out of 3 of Louisville, Auburn, and Georgia and Florida. That's tough.
I mean
Assuming you beat South
that's a Mark
Carolina.
Stoops special though. That's a Mark Stoops special. One big upset. Well, actually, no, not a big upset. It's just 6, 7 wins. That's a Mark Stoops special right there. So if he's
It
gonna pull
is.
off a Mark Stoops special, he might have to go out of his Mark Stoops comfort zone and beat a top 15 team. You know?
Yeah, that's not crazy.
Let's talk about Georgia Tech. You were pumped to talk about Georgia Tech's schedule. You have been high on Georgia Tech the last 2 years. You continue to be high on them. But when you were looking at it, you you informed me that this was a tough schedule, so I'm gonna let you explain this to our viewers. And if you're listening on Spotify, see, we'll be describing the schedule, but um, on YouTube there's some nice graphics. I know we said that multiple times if you're watching the full video, but yeah, CD, I'll let you take it away.
Listen, I love what Brent Key is doing with the program. I think they're doing a great job, recruiting and using some nice transfer portal pieces. I like the Haynes King pickup last year. It really worked out for him. But listen, they play 12 games this year, right? They have 3 buys because they play week 0. So if you see on YouTube, right, that third buy is actually in week 12 in between Miami and North Carolina State. They play 11 FBS football teams. All 11 of them made a bowl game, right? And all of them in the conference. Like you're talking about in conference, you have Florida State at Syracuse, who's getting better under Fran Brown, right? You have Louisville, right? I'm sorry, 10 out of 11, 10 out of 12 teams. That was a mistaken stat. Syracuse didn't. No, Syracuse made a bowl game. What am I talking about? I'm
They
tripping.
did. They got
Regardless,
actually murdered.
yeah, thank
So they
you.
didn't have a quarterback, tight end playing quarterback, but
Let me keep going. Right? You got Florida State at Syracuse, right? Not gonna be easy. Fran Brown there in the Carrier Dome, whatever, yada yada yada. At Louisville, right? Not easy on the road there. Duke and Diaz year one, Malik Murphy getting going there midseason at North Carolina, right? North Carolina might take a step back this year for sure, but also you're on the road there. Notre Dame, just throw them in there for shits and giggles. At Virginia Tech, who returns just about the most of anybody in college football, right? According to Bill Connolly and S&P Plus there with freaking 95% of their offense returning. That's not fun for Georgia Tech to play them. You get a bye week, awesome. Now you get Miami and Cam Ward, right? A team that's a very popular pick for the ACC. Another popular pick for the ACC, North Carolina State there, week 13, right before you go to Georgia. I mean, this is about as tough as it gets in the ACC. And for Georgia Tech, I was hoping would look to build on another year. Right? They made a bowl game this year. They hit their over. They upset a team or two, and they really kind of hit their stride and got kind of dangerous down the stretch there. And now it's back down to 5.5 because the schedule is brutal, right? Georgia State, in state, Georgia State, who's I believe right across the way, also in Atlanta there, the Georgia State Panthers there with a new coach, and then also VMI, yada, yada, yada. You got to win those 2 football games. But I mean, your out of conference is Notre Dame, Georgia, and in conference, you get Florida State, Louisville, Miami, North Carolina State, at Vatech, at Syracuse. I mean, I don't. This is brutal. This is brutal.
yeah. No, I agree with you. I agree with you. And I feel like Georgia State or Georgia Tech, it's always a tough schedule because they play Georgia, right? I mean, it's just always just going to be. It is nice though, I'll say, with the third bye week. It's kind of a nice little dynamic there that they get you get 2 kind of late buys in the season to kind of collect yourself. One before Miami game and then one before the NC State game. I do like that. I do like that dynamic, and they kind of save their bye, right? So like a lot of teams, they'll play week 0 and then they have that bye week 1. They get their buys week 5, 10, and 12. It's kind of nice, I mean, we talked about trying to manage injuries in college football and resting up. Like they're going to be one of the more fresh teams. I would imagine down the road, because they'll have those multiple weeks off.
I guess it is nice for sure, but also like you're saving your bye week for North Carolina State and Georgia, right? I mean,
Well, Miami and North Carolina State.
well, it's Miami's in between 2 buys. It's weird. I mean, it goes bye week, Miami, bye week, and then North Carolina State and Georgia. I guess you're right. Yeah, their second bye, you get Miami, which is nice. But still, though, I mean, I don't know. You're gonna have to beat some teams that you're not supposed to beat and on the road, right? Albeit to hit that over on a win total and to continue improving under Brent Key. And that's the thing is progress. Yes, it's not linear, but also like we've talked about with Florida, we've talked about with these other teams where you're getting better, right, year over year, but the record just won't say it because like college football, you are not what your record says you are. And you're gonna come to learn that with these teams where like Georgia Tech it's probably going to be 5-7, 6-6, and that's going to be a damn good year for them in the ACC. And they're going to be really giving hell to Miami and North Carolina State and Louisville and even Notre Dame, and other teams because of they're getting better, but it's also like their schedule is brutal for them. Not going to lead to
Yeah.
wins.
Yeah. Although there are some teams though that they get upset. I mean, I know like looking at the schedule, like North Carolina looks like an upset, but when it's all said and done, that might not be necessarily an upset or a big time one at that. over there week 7. You get Duke at home. That's a winnable game. I mean, like they could get to a bowl game. I'd be very impressed if they got to a bowl game with the schedule. Let's see.
And by the
I'm
way,
looking
I
at
would, I
like,
would love that.
yeah. Let's go Brent Key. We're rooting for you, pal. We're rooting for you. What's yeah, so Georgia Tech's 46th in returning production rating. So um oh, they're playing a lot of teams in that ballpark right there. 47 is Georgia, 45 Miami, 44 Louisville. Um yeah, this is a tough schedule. No way fans or buts about it. So USC for our final team that we're going to talk about today. I mean, move to the Big Ten. I mean, that's you're going to get a tough schedule. And what does that mean for them specifically? It means going to Michigan, getting Penn State at home. I mean, throw on a road trip to Washington. Uh, and then how about Notre Dame game at home? So, and neutral site with LSU to start off the season. So I mean, that's like 5 headliner games right there that you got for USC, and no Caleb Williams. Now you like Dan Lin over there at defensive coordinator. We'll see what he can do. There's some good transfer portal gets in for that defensive side of the ball. As a program, you and I are both high on Miller Moss. We think that offense is still explosive and they can get stuff done there. That backfield looks good. The wide receiving core looks good. We'll see though, man. We'll see. I mean, like, I imagine the USC's over under win totals at like around 6.5, 7, 7.5.
It's 7.5.
Okay. So that means that they pretty much, if they lose those 5 games that we mentioned, then that means that they got to beat Wisconsin. They got to beat UCLA. They got to beat Nebraska. They got to beat Rutgers. They got to beat Maryland. They got to win all those games. They got to win all those games. It's nice, though. Like UCLA, they don't really have to deal with the Big Ten cold this year, which I know is a concern for, not a concern for USC fans, but I think like the consensus was that these California teams might have a tough time adjusting to Big Ten play in the fall, specifically that November time of the year. But you get Notre Dame at home, you get Nebraska at home, and then of course UCLA. I mean, it's a home game. I know we have it's like at UCLA, but it's like it's a,
Across the street.
it's across. It's in the Rose Bowl, so it's like it's in their backyard. So yeah, I mean, this is a tough schedule. This is a tough schedule, man. It's nice that you get the bye before Michigan, before you play in week 4, but it's almost like if you know that you're going to lose to them, right? It would have been nice to maybe have that bye in front of a Maryland or a Wisconsin, or just later in the season, so you can uh, kind of manage that rest there, because it's not like they need a bye after they play Utah State. But what are some things about the schedule that you find particularly, I don't know, alarming? Is that the right word?
I just think it's interesting how you're going to learn a lot about, and I know we don't like to overreact in week 1, because you're going to learn a lot about USC, I think, playing LSU, right? Neutral site. Awesome game for you guys. Your defense, how much are you going to improve in? Obviously, yes, they lose their Heisman Trophy winner, but Garrett Nussmeier is a damn good quarterback. They are very, very high on him. Chris Hilton's very good. Kyron Lacey's very good. Aaron Anderson from Bama. Sheldon Sampson, the former 5-star freshman, pretty damn good as well. They got 2 bookend tackles that are all SEC. Right, offensively, they're gonna be pretty damn good. Can Miller Moss exploit that secondary and that defense? And I think he can. We're pretty high on him. I don't know if he'll win that game. Who knows? You might have to score 40 to do so. But I think you're going to learn a lot about USC right then and there. And then you get right into Big Ten play a couple weeks later at Michigan. Welcome to the Big Ten. National championship, defending national championships. Even Wisconsin, year 2 under Luke Fickell, they're getting better, right? At Minnesota, who knows what they can do if they're going to out physical you. If your defensive line doesn't show up for that game, you might have a real tough time. And if you can't exploit, maybe a little bit better athlete you have over them in that secondary, then you might have trouble against Minnesota. Obviously, Penn State not going to be easy either. Even though you get that at home, they got to travel across the country to you. Penn State is going to be a surprise team, I think, in the Big Ten as well. At Maryland, across country, not easy. Come home. Rutgers has to come across country. It's like weird schedule dynamics. Like you mentioned, in November, it gets kind of easier. You're kind of staying on your half of the country in your time zone, which is nice for you. But you're still playing Washington. You're still playing Nebraska, who's getting better. Notre Dame, obviously. And so, yeah, there's a reason they're on this team. They're on the schedule because they've got a lot of tough games. And obviously, we talked about it over and over again. Like, what makes a tough schedule is multiple tough odd conference games, right? LSU and Notre Dame. Boom, check, check, check. And then tough in conference games where you have at Michigan, Wisconsin, Penn State, teams you're not going to be favored against. And obviously Washington and Nebraska as well, teams that might give you problems. And Rutgers returning a lot of production at Maryland's across the country. Who knows what they can do there with MJ Morris and company there with Michael Oxley. So yeah, who knows it? But USC, a team we like, a program that I think is trending in the right direction. Are we going to see it in year one? I don't know. And the schedule is not going to give them any favors, you know.
Absolutely. So they're going to win until 7.5. What are the games they got to win, right? They got to win Utah State.
Well,
They got to beat
got to beat
Rutgers.
Michigan, or we got to beat Minnesota. I'm sorry, got to beat
Got to beat
Minnesota.
Got to beat Utah State. Got to beat Minnesota. Got to beat Rutgers. Got to beat Maryland. Do you throw Nebraska on there? If they
You
want to
you
meet their
you,
win total, I
you
would throw
probably got
UCLA
to,
on there.
yeah, you got to beat UCLA. That's six. You got to win two more games.
So two.
Nebraska.
Did I
Yeah.
always say Wisconsin?
No. Wisconsin, I don't think is a game you got to win. Washington, Wisconsin,
Well,
Nebraska. Those are not going to be easy games, but games that you're going to be within a touchdown favorite of either way that you got to get in, you know?
yeah. Fortunately, all those games are in their time zone, so it's kind of nice. I'd be more concerned like if they were playing Nebraska at Nebraska like in late November or Wisconsin late November. That would be definitely some red alerts. Some. I would be definitely very concerned. And that's it for our toughest schedules in 2024. These are not the 9 most toughest schedules in 2024. All right. If that wasn't clear, these are just some tough schedules that we wanted to talk about. And if you guys have more, please let us know because we'd love to talk about more. If you guys want us to talk about more, we'll talk about more. No problem. What is your team doing? Like, how's tough of a schedule does your team have? Is it comparable to these? Is there weird schedule dynamics that we haven't even considered? Like, there's some weird like road home road traveling situations. Some weird bye week placements in some certain schedules. Please let us know. We don't have eyes on everything in every single schedule. Or maybe we missed some stuff. So, but thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure if you like the content, like the video. It's that easy. Make sure you consider subscribing as well. We want to do some cool stuff. If we hit some milestones subscriber wise with you guys, and we can't wait for all that to happen. And the channel's continuing to grow, and you guys are doing great. Clicking those like buttons, subscribing, sharing our podcast with people. We thank you guys so much. It has been absolutely awesome. Everything you guys do for us keeps us going, man. Keeps us going. CD, anything from you, man?
And like you said, thanks for the support. Consider subscribing and liking the video, obviously. Hope you enjoyed the content. And we're not going anywhere. We got a lot of stuff to talk about this summer and this off season. So let us know what your thoughts on the video are and other videos that you want us to get to as well.
Absolutely. We'll see y'all in the next one.